This is a video made for someone who already appreciates Persona 3 in any of its forms. There will be spoilers. In late 2012, I was 12, and soon to turn 13 when my parents ended up being able to afford to buy a house. Dad had to get a new job almost 2 hours away, and Mom ended up going through a lot in her own right. It was the summer, and we had a lot of adjusting to do, having moved from Chicago to the suburbs. I was 50 minutes from where I lived, 50 minutes from all my friends who I wasn't able to contact again. I didn't have a phone, I wasn't allowed to have Facebook, and I stopped chatting on PSN with a few friends who had PlayStation 3s by then. I was also 50 minutes away from all my grandparents, especially the one who I spent just about every single day with from the time I started kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade. See, I was also about to go into middle school, in a town I knew not a single person in. But all of these things didn't scare me or weigh on me like they did later in the year. For a while, I was just as carefree as ever, and I was always with Dad as he and I worked to fix up the house before my mom and my first cat, Princess, moved fully in. Before I was able to move into my real room, I ended up staying in the small room on the first floor on a blow-up bed for a month or two, and I don't remember exactly what it looked like, but my dad set up a modest PC. I didn't have tons to do, so I pulled up the newest playthrough at the time from a YouTuber I had been watching for years, Psychedelic Snake. He's gotten into a lot of drama over the years, but I can't even express how many video games that guy got me into, how many laughs I got out of him, and I'll always be thankful for that, even if his whole channel has been wiped now, which really hurt when I found out a few weeks ago. It reminded me that things aren't as permanent as you think they are when you're a kid. Anyway, this new playthrough of his just happened to be Persona 3 FES.
Welcome to the first part of Persona 3 FES, whatever that means, I don't know, but I'm gonna stick with fucking even sexy edition.
I'd never heard of the game before. I think the only RPG I had ever played at that point was like Final Fantasy 12 and 13, and I hated both of those because why is the combat not like punchy? I was definitely an action-oriented gamer at the time, the only exception being horror stuff, which also started because of Snake's channel. The opening of FES was so fire. It was just anime as hell, but it didn't feel tacky. I'd never seen stuff like that. My cousins always called anime Chinese stuff, so yeah, having hung around with them all the time, we definitely weren't watching anime. But the visuals here were just so smooth, and the music had such style. It was all so different. And watching the opening cutscene where Yukari has the gun to her head, and you don't know if she's gonna commit or not, it was heavy without being edgy. I watched this playthrough for hours and hours, stretching out a week or so of time before I was finally convinced that I needed to play it. I think it was after the Yakushima trip.
It's a mess. I'm so afraid. I don't know what to do anymore.
I never heard characters talk the way she did. It was like she knew me. I felt important. I felt like I made a difference for someone. Look, it sounds stupid, I know, but Persona 3 just has a way of making you feel so immersed in the world, and I wasn't even the one playing it. Until I got a digital copy of FES on PSN. So I played it for all of that summer, loving every second of it. But then at one point, during the battle where Shinjiro is missing, I actually soft-locked myself, because I wasn't able to beat it. I didn't really understand how leveling up and grinding worked back then, so I was super underleveled and I always saved over one slot, so I was screwed. I had to give up. A few months later, I was in school for a bit. I started taking a bus instead of being driven. I had a locker now, I had passing periods. There were totally different types of people around me, just a whole bunch of change. It wasn't easy, and for the first time at school, I didn't feel like I fit in. I went from being the coolest kid in the room to the quiet one who always tried to sit in the back without ever raising a hand. It just felt like no one liked me, and the only time I really felt okay was when I was home, sitting in my basement playing games. I used my PS3 all the time still, probably playing Skate. I loved skating back then. But one day, when I went upstairs to hang out with Princess, I ended up laying on my mom's bed, stomach down, watching YouTube on my iPod with a crappy Luigi case on it. And I came across the end of Psychedelic Snake's playthrough. I had way less context than I needed to watch the ending of the game, but I remember the exact way I felt when I saw the protagonist in Aigis' lap, closing his eyes for the last time.
be by your side, protecting you.
I literally burst into tears, something I still don't really do all that often. My cat looked at me sideways and I sucked in a sob, and I remember Snake talking about how thankful he was to all the people who watched him up to the end. And it was a real journey getting there. It fired me up all over again, and it made me want to get back into it. I think it was that very night that I restarted my playthrough, and I cried just as hard when I finished the game myself. Hours and hours of my life went into that game. I remember loving literally every second. I was blown away by the school simulation, the dating, the fighting, all of it. It was funny, it was sad, it was difficult with its topics, and I hadn't really dealt with those kinds before. Change, death, losing people, losing things, having friendships when I had just about none at the time. It meant everything to me. It got me through all the stuff I was dealing with like it was my other life, my better life. Persona 3 FES just mattered to me. It made me love video games. It made me love anime. It made me love drawing, art, and so many other things. It's embarrassing, but Mitsuru was the first character I ever dated in a video game, and it totally opened my eyes to a part of me I didn't understand back then. Listener, I'm almost done with my rambling. Sorry. It's going on so long, I just really can't make a video about Reload without doing all this backstory. Bear with me if you can. I hope you can relate, even just a little bit so far. I think I was 14 when I picked up Persona 3 Portable at a now defunct Replay in Hoffman Estates. My cousin and I always went there, so it was really wild when it ended up closing around 2015. The end of an era, for real. I hadn't even seen gameplay of Portable, but I think I already knew before I bought it that it had a new campaign with a female protagonist. In all honesty, I have a lot to say about her route, but I don't really want to bog this video down too much more, so I'll make it quick. The female protagonist embodies life. She's everything the male is not. Her responses are snappy, she's popular, she gets to know everyone in ways the male couldn't until Reload. I'll explain more about that later. She even has the ability to revive Shinjiro if you romance him. A lot of people say she's killing the meaning of Persona 3, but I don't see it like that. I see it as just another side of the story, one that ends the same way and feels just as impactful, but gives you the chance to experience it through a lens that offers levity. I kind of feel like she was me if I hadn't ever moved from the city. I can say without hesitation that the female route is a must-play. I love the handheld experience as a whole, but now it's much easier to get given that it's on modern consoles and PC. Atlas changed the weight between social links leveling up, your party could gain EXP faster, you could work jobs to make money and improve social stats, there were more social links, including a male attendant named Theodore, and there were way more little conversations in and out of Tartarus that felt really special to your individual relationship. I didn't even mind the switch from 3D to 2D dating sim vibes. You still got to run around in 3D when it was in Tartarus, which I always thought was neat. They honestly fit a lot on that tiny UMD, including the new music that just doesn't miss. I used to try to get so many friends into the game with the PSP version. Heck, I gave multiple close friends my whole PSP with it, hoping it would click with them like it did with me, but that didn't happen. It's bittersweet thinking about that now, because the people I did that for were my closest friends, and one of them is my only ex. I haven't talked to any of them in years. I never thought that would happen at the time. They used to tell me that there was too much talking, or that Tartarus was too boring, and I get it. Portable, FES, and the original are all very much of the time. So I wasn't surprised at all when it seemed like less and less people, even on the internet, started to not favor the experience. So in 2023, when that first trailer for Reload dropped, I was thrilled that more people would be playing P3 again. And usually I'm pretty weird about remakes. When RE2 came out, I refused to play it for years. Final Fantasy VII Remake was similar for me. I just have a hard time letting go of how I felt when I played it, and hearing about how other people sometimes belittle the original product. But I've come around to remakes now, and honestly, when I saw that Reload was happening, I wasn't even thinking negatively at all. I just wanted to see Persona 3 again. I hadn't played it since 2016, after finishing it like 5 or so times from beginning to end. I wanted more, and I wanted more people to give it a chance. I got Reload day 1, but thank you, Amazon, for giving me the iGuess edition like 10 days late. And I was a little disappointed by how small the iGuess figure is. It's like not even close to being a statue like I thought it'd be. And there was no steelbook like there was for P5 or Royal, just the standard edition case when I spent like nearly $200 on this thing. And a lot has been said about the fact that I buy the iGuess edition of the game just for it to not give me the answer until I shell out another $30. I'll say this now. I have yet to buy that DLC. I think it's bullshit that it costs that much. Unfortunately, the negative ball kept rolling as I started playing the game. I thought the new opening cutscene was kind of weak. It didn't feel as artful as the PSP one, where you could flip your PSP and watch the female or male right side up. To this day, I don't really like the lyrics of Full Moon Life, or the vocals in this specific case. I actually thought the vocals didn't hit for a long time with the new woman, Azumi Takahashi. I also felt like there was way too much Lotus juice.
Sounds like it's meant to be. Wake up, the freeze made when things fall apart. What matters at the end is how you left them all. Fire in my soul, fire in my heart, till you see on the other side of stars. Oh, the yearning stars away.
And then the opening cutscene of the protag comes in so washed out, and that's actually an issue in the whole game. Everything is blown out and saturated, and I don't know why. Persona 5 doesn't even look like that. Persona 5 is beautifully lit. And speaking of P5, this game really wants to be like it. Persona 3 is set in 2009. Why are we getting text on a touchscreen phone? Oh, because it looks like Persona 5. Why are the battles a breeze? So people who played P5 can get through them easier. Why do we have theurgy? Because Persona 5 Royal had showtimes. Why are the protags all in costumes? The Phantom Thieves. You get the picture, dude. It irks me like nothing else. Oh, and one more thing. When did the Persona 3 protagonist exactly animate like Joker? It's down to the hair twist. It feels so trite. Why couldn't they just believe in the game they were making? Ugh. Reload is not perfect. It's not the ultimate edition of Persona 3, and in some ways, I really don't like it. But, and this is a huge thing here, Reload still contains one of the most meaningful stories ever put into a video game, and I love it for that reason. Much like FES, Reload came out at the time I needed it most. In December of 23, I moved out of my parents' house. In January of this year, I got my own cat. In February, the month this game was released, my grandpa passed away. I've never had a close relative pass away before, the closest thing being my first cat, Princess. It's funny, but I remember playing that last Nyx battle back in the day, and I shooed Princess away from sitting in my lap because it got in the way of my controller. I regret that now. A lot. You know, a lot of people tell you that you don't know what's good in your life until it's over, and it's somewhat trivial, but that last Nyx fight, with my new cat planted on my lap, and the closest person to me just a text away, that's when it hit me that Reload was special. So now, I want to tell you why. Persona 3's theme of death has been talked into the grave. I feel like everyone knows it's about dying, how people in the game deal with it before and after it's happened, how it looks when it's someone close to you, distant, or literally yourself. Some people believe Persona 3 is just depression the game, but no. I believe Persona 3 is a game about life. About living for the people who can't. About living for yourself. About living with determination and purpose. It's incredibly effective, and some of the social links in 3 stick out in my mind more than any other Persona game. Death is such a human thing, and it really makes the characters just anime drawings on the screen feel like real people you know. Having moved 2.5 hours away, I felt lonely, leaving friends behind, leaving family behind, kind of like I did in 2012. But now I'm happy, content, and I'm here for someone important. I'm here for work that matters in my life, too. It was so hard for me now to connect as fully to the game's cast as I did before. I think part of that was the new English voices, mostly because sometimes it genuinely made them different characters. And yeah, I know they had to change the voice cast because Vic Mignogna is gross and blacklisted from the industry, but some of the changes really messed me up. The best example is Yukari, now voiced by Heather Gonzalez instead of Michelle Ruff. Yukari is a character who got a lot of hate because she was so sharp-witted and mean when Ruff voiced her.
You think you know me? You don't know anything. I'm sorry.
But now that hard edge is basically absent, it does make Yukari more digestible, but she loses a part of herself.
You think you know me? You don't know anything. I'm sorry.
Yukari is a popular hottie who has mommy issues. She's always on the defense, but it doesn't read that way tonally anymore. With that being said, I did grow used to her new voice. I thought she was a great actress, but still, Yukari was not Yukari. I will add, though, that Ken and Fuka's new voices actually made them better for me.
This room is really too small to practice in.
Caught them off guard. Yes, we have the upper hand.
The fact that the characters were redesigned in both Tartarus outfits and in their portraits actually got me resenting the game for a minute. The new costumes are downright bad to me. Like, they don't fit the original look of the game at all, and I literally laughed at the cutscene of them walking to the Tower of Strutton for over a minute of screen time. But the portraits did grow on me. It just felt really weird for a while. It was like seeing an old friend who got a nose job and you couldn't quite remember what they looked like before, but you still know it's off. The actual models are quite beautiful, standing and posing in ways just like they used to. The dialogue in this game is one-to-one with the original, something I noticed immediately from how many times I played those freaking games. I loved that about Reload. I really did. It felt respectful, and when they added new scenes, I got really nervous that they just do the P4 arena thing where everyone's just a caricature of themselves, but Reload did them all justice. Aragaki especially gets a really fantastic bit of screen time with major payoff. And so do Ken, Junpei, Koro, and Akihiko. Their little scenes are spread organically throughout the game. Parts of them felt like they came from the FemRoup of Portable. And speaking on that, I was actually surprised they didn't shove full social links into the game for the boys, but I admire the restraint for the sake of pacing. I said something earlier in this video about Mitsuru being a sort of awakening for me back in the day. I'm gonna be vague for reasons, but in the PSP version, they added voice lines in the 10th Link event, and she just became legendary.
I want to ride with you, but you'll have to sit on the back until you get your license.
Tara Platt voiced Mitsuru then, and to this day, she's been my favorite actress ever. Yeah, Edelgard was an entire arc in my life. I can't even go into it here. It feels a little tacky watching it now, but at the time when I was a young teenager who had never heard that stuff before, I can't even explain it.
But when we're alone, no one else can hear me. Your name is special to me.
It gave me jitters as if I was really being told all this stuff. There's also something that happens in Portable that does not happen in Reload.
It seems that you beat me to it. I take it you remember everything as well, then. Or did you never forget to begin with? Our nights filled with battle, the miracle that happened, how you and I felt about each other.
I don't understand why this isn't a thing in Reload. I feel like all of the final conversations add a whole new layer to the ending of the game. You play as this character and give all of these other characters an understanding of themselves, and they really seem to think, hey, you're gonna be here along the way with us, but then you're not. Your character dies and the game just ends. Unless you play the answer, you don't get to see the weight that has on everyone. And even in the answer, it's not very thorough or personal when it comes to how your death tolls on the characters you chose to romance. Honestly, I wish Persona games made the romance aspect more prevalent in a mature way like this one attempts to. I know waifu wars are a thing, and they get way too amped up, but like, I really would have loved to see this game specifically deal with it. Of course, we do see how it is with Chidori and Junpei, but their relationship has always been a little eye-rolly to me. Chidori is not likable no matter how many times I've played it, even if her outfit freaking pops off. Kamaki is my favorite non-party member social link. It's so tragic, but it's also incredibly real. I've recently been working with people who have disabilities or diseases similar to him, so it hits me even more now. Art is powerful, and Kamaki's final days are spent writing, pushing a message out for you, as the player, to read. It's so personal, honestly.
This was the alligator's first friend, and he was very happy. They started going to the river every day, and the alligator would listen to the little birds sing.
I want to show you a clip from Kamaki's mother, and I want you to just sit with it for a minute and really listen to what she's saying.
They knew he wouldn't live to see adulthood. Every day, I worried whether he'd wake up the next morning. I blamed myself for what he inherited. But he said something to me near the end. I'm sorry to have brought so much pain into your life, Mother. I'm glad that I was born into this world. I'm glad to have been your son. Thank you for the life you've given me. He suffered so much, and yet he still said that to me.
The emotion from the voice actress is incredible, and the meaning in those lines are just so bitterly true. I cried when I watched this scene, and I mean cried. My eyes melted into the back of my head the rest of the night. It was so raw. I thought back to not letting Princess sit in my lap. I thought about the last things I ever said to some of the friends I'll never talk to again, and I lamented over the way things ended up for myself and a certain someone. But then I remember that the past is the past, and ironically, something Iga says in her social link hit me then.
You meet others, forge relationships, and spend time with them. And then they're gone, leaving you behind, leaving you alone. When I think about that, I just can't hold back my feelings. But I understand now. That's just how it is. No two views are alike. No 2 days are the same. It's natural for everything to disappear, re-emerge, and constantly change. Life is both short and finite.
I talked sourly about the music earlier, but it still does it right at times in Reload. For the longest time, I could not listen to the song Memories of the City without breaking into chills. Uncomfortable ones, though, like the ones you get thinking about tiny holes in someone's hand. Sorry for the image now in your brain. When that in-game month came around, I knew the song, along with Living with Determination, was gonna start playing. I literally had to save my game and turn it off, like it's that intense for me. When I did play again, my stomach dropped. The game just does so well, in any version, conveying the downward depression the city, the school, and the world is going through. The only place that feels safe after a while ends up being the dorm, and the song is so perfect, written to seem sad when your friends are questioning everything, and then feeling powerful when they accept what they want to do about the fall. Oh, and it's pretty cliche for an RPG to do an end-of-the-world trope, but Persona 3 seriously sticks the landing. If there was only one end-of-the-world game, I'd pick this one over even Final Fantasy VII, and I love that game. It portrays even just the side characters so on point to how I think people would really act in a doomsday situation. Joining cults, being paralyzed with fear even on the streets, tons of stuff. In FES, you couldn't control party members. They chose their own actions. Today's standards say that's whack, but at the time, it added another layer of those characters being their own people. In Portable, you could control the cast yourself, and that added a different layer of ease to combat because you didn't have to suggest to the characters that they needed to be on team support or assault. Portable also added in faster leveling up, Reaper grinding, and the clock at the base of Tartarus that gives you full SP. Now Reload adds tons and tons of stuff, for better and worse. This is the easiest a Persona game has been, which is awesome for people who want that, but hard mode ain't nothing anymore. The UI is always in your favor, and there's this fortune teller at Club Escapade that can give you a major boon in battle if you go there before going to Tartarus, like major XP boosts, Theurgy boosts, and more. The Theurgy is like mega damage bars that fill up so any of the cast can pull off crazy attacks. As the game progresses and you hang out with the cast at the dorm, you get new abilities, and sometimes the abilities do almighty damage. But with characters like Ken, he can revive all dead members and boost other things. Yukari has a thing where she gives everyone an insane magic attack boost on the next turn, and because of these, it makes every cast member much more valuable than they used to be. My main team in the past was always Aigis, Akihiko, and Mitsuru. In Reload, sometimes it was Ken, sometimes it was Koro, Yukari, or Mitsuru, Ken, and Aki, or a bunch of other setups. It was really fun to mess around. In all honesty, I've never cared a bunch about the battling in Persona 3. I always just go through the floors and fight the monthly boss and have a decent enough time to keep going, but Reload makes things really snappy and EXP boosted. Like never before was I able to fuse Messiah, and I did that in this game while also reaching level 99 and Reaper grinding. Which, quick tip, if you're gonna Reaper grind, use Sylphid Aura from Fuka, get your Theurgy gauge to move faster at the Fortune Place, and have Koromaru with Debilitate, or the Persona Satan to use Debilitate, because you get like hundreds of thousands of EXP from that every time you defeat him. And I even went up against the ultimate opponent, and got destroyed by insta-kills, so I never won, but it was still cool. I was into it at least to see it in person one time. Every version of P3 is like a fraction. Persona 3 is 1/4, FES is 2/4, Portable is 3/4, and now we have Reload. And as a whole, they make the best game ever. And I'm the type of person who can headcanon it and link it bit by bit until it's perfect for me. And what's an RPG if not your perfect experience? It's timeless, and all of these versions are my favorite video games ever made. It's never been a question. I love so many things about Persona 3, and even if you don't, it's so hard to not point at that initial 2006 release and be like, wow, that was a genre-defining experience. How many games now want to be like Persona? So many. How many games want that sleek aesthetic? So many. How many games want to tell stories just as captivating and well written? Many. But how many games can actually reach that mark? Not a lot, and it's been nearly 20 years. It's worth playing, it's worth loving, and it's worth having been made. So to the makers of the old and the new, I have to say, thank you for everything.